Hello everyone, Nordic Beast here, and welcome to 5 aircraft I would like to see in War Thunder. Now, this is my list of aircraft I find interesting or think would be enjoyable to have in game. There's no real order to it, so it's not really a top 5. Now you'll notice some of these aircraft have more detail than others. This is due to longer or more detailed testing or simply surviving World War II. So let's get into it. First, we have the Bell P-63D, a single prototype of the P-63. It was built featuring an Allison V1710-109 engine rated at 1,425 horsepower on takeoff. There was an increase of 10 inches to the wingspan for a total of 39 feet 2 inches and 255 square feet of wing area. The D model did lack the lower ventral fin in the later models. However, the most notable feature would be its rearward sliding bubble canopy, replacing the car-like side doors of the previous P-39s and P-63s. It would prove to be the fastest P-63 at 437 miles an hour at 30,000 feet. Its improved performance, however, wouldn't help it go into production, as its performance was no better than the P-51 that was already in production. Unfortunately, the only prototype would be destroyed in a flight test accident, killing Bell's test pilot. I feel this would be a nice addition to War Thunder. The previous P-63s are already proving to be capable fighter bombers. This version, while wielding the same armament as the previous P-63s, would prove to be much faster and likely have a shorter turn time as it has a larger wing area. Personally, I'd like to see this as a battle pass or a squadron vehicle at around 4.7, maybe even 5.0. Next up, we have the XP-40Q. There were 3 Q-series aircraft. We'll mostly be following the Q2 and the Q3. They were identical except for a slightly modified canopy on the Q3. The last of the P-40s to be developed, it had notable features such as shorter clipped wingtips at 35 feet, 3 inches, almost a full foot off each wingtip, a cut-down rear fuselage, and a teardrop canopy. It mounted a powerful Allison V1710-101 engine, which produced 1,800 horsepower at 20,000 feet, 1,425 horsepower at takeoff with a 4-bladed prop. It's actually a very similar engine to the P-63D. For further weight savings and increased performance, the aircraft had a much slimmer nose and air intake, as well as weapons being reduced to only .450 caliber machine guns. It was the best handling and highest performance of any P-40. Unfortunately, it was 2 years too late, and even if the airframe had been 2 years earlier, the engine wasn't ready, and during testing it was down for engine repairs most of the time. In terms of War Thunder, it would have impressive performance with a top speed of 422 miles an hour at 22,500 feet, and it was able to climb from sea level to 20,000 feet in 4.8 minutes, averaging a climb of around 4,000 feet per minute. Combining the P-40's already impressive maneuverability with a powerful engine and light weight would give it a much improved turn time and roll rate. Its biggest drawback would be its short range and only having 235 rounds per gun in its .450 calibers. I'd like to see it come into the game as an event or squadron vehicle at around 4.7. Here we have the P-75 Eagle, an aircraft I've actually seen in person. The P-75 was built originally out of parts of existing aircraft to save time and cost. It was designed as a long-ranged escort fighter, mounting a powerful mid-fuselage Allison V3420 engine at 2,600 horsepower with counter-rotating props. It also mounted no less than 10 .50 caliber machine guns with a range of 2,000 miles. The first prototypes were built from parts of P-40s, SPD Dauntlesses, and F-4U Corsairs. The later P-75s would have a far more finished appearance than the prototypes. Though shown to the public as a wonder weapon, the P-75 was anything but. It was plagued with constant engine trouble, and by the time it was ready for production, the P-51s were already escorting B-17s over Germany. The P-75 had center of mass issues, which also led to spin characteristics. It had poorer engine cooling and high aileron forces at high speeds. In War Thunder, I think it would be an interesting entry, as America's only real twin-engine fighters are the P-38 and the F-7. Though the P-75 is technically single-engine, its Allison engine is actually 2 engines mounted together. Its role in the game would be closer to that of a P-47, only bigger and heavier. something similar to the French VB-10-02, likely about the same BR 4.3. Here we have our first non-American aircraft on the list, the SS-4, an Italian fighter prototype of the late 1930s. It was a pushprop with a canard layout. It was of all-metal construction, would have been very advanced aircraft for its day. Unfortunately, it only flew twice. On its second flight, it flew for about 45 minutes before it had issues with one of its ailerons, and crashed into a tree before it reached the runway. Due to the lack of information on this aircraft, all we have are its basic stats. Top speed of around 355 miles an hour and a powerful armament of two 20mm cannons and one 30mm cannon, which would have made this very hard-hitting and a hard one to balance. You have the performance of an early warfighter, but with the weapons loadout of something late war. I'd personally like to see this tried out at about 4.3 as an Italian premium. And finally we have ourselves another Italian prototype in the form of the Piaggio P119. This fighter prototype would have a mid-mounted engine, much like the P-39 and the P-63, only a radial engine rated at 1500 horsepower. Have a wide-set landing gear and a forward cockpit with good visibility and a powerful armament of 20mm cannon and 450 caliber machine guns. It was a heavy aircraft, but with a large wing area. Like many of the prototypes on this list, it would be plagued with a long list of issues, mostly with engine cooling, had issues with the drive shaft from the engine to the prop, and excessive vibration when firing all of its weapons. With a top speed of around 400 miles an hour at 20,000 feet and focused firepower, I see this filling similar role to the American P-38, only with a reduced climb, being stated at 3 minutes and 15 seconds to 10,000 feet, so roughly being around 3,000 feet per minute. My personal guess would be a tight turning radius but with a low roll rate, mixed with a heavy weight and a decent engine would give this thing an average turn time, but likely have trouble at low-speed maneuvering. I could see this machine around 4.3 in the regular Italian tree. Well, that's the end of this list. I have quite a few more aircraft and tanks and even ships I would love to see in game, so expect more lists. If you enjoyed, please hit the like button, and I'll see you guys next time.